Okay, everyone, welcome. Welcome to day two. Day two. Day two of 3 days of exploring. Thank you to everybody who's come back, and thank you to new people. We really, really appreciate your presence, everybody's presence. We're really, really, really grateful for you all being here. Like we always say, we've never had to do it yet, but the idea of talking to a blank computer screen just seems a bit not much crack. So thank you everybody for being here. My name's Dave Ellery.
And I'm Jenny Hillary.
Jenny Hillary. It's weird. I still find that a little bit weird.
I find it really weird.
Yeah, it's like expecting Jenny Anderson, but we're married. We got married a few years ago, and but we just I figured it. So Myra's coming in. No, welcome back and thank you. We hope you enjoyed yesterday. We hope that you enjoyed yesterday. Again, these are being recorded so we can put them out on YouTube. This is a via donation event. I just want to thank everybody who's donated so far. We're so grateful to everybody who donates. Thank you so much. It means an awful lot. It allows us to carry on doing our work. It allows us to keep putting food in our mouths and whatnot, and everything we know we need to live on this earth. So thank you so much to everybody who's donated so far. If you wish to make a donation, you can do so via PayPal at info@freedomthinking.co.uk. That's our PayPal name, handle, whatever it's called. If you go into PayPal, pay who, info@freedomthinking.co.uk, or you can get in touch with us using the same email address, which effectively is what it is. And we can transfer your bank details. We can give you our bank details if you wish to make a bank transaction, or as somebody has suggested this morning, thank you so much, Myra, crypto. Why not? We can do crypto as well. That's great. So we have got a crypto account. So we take anything, gold, silver, crypto, and money. Property, yeah, land. We take land, and small countries, nothing too big, thank you. Yeah, where do you want to go?
I was just going to say, for people who were on yesterday and newer people, we are going to be uploading these, but our internet is so slow, we're going to need to do it from somewhere else. So
Yeah.
we'll hopefully have some up by tomorrow morning.
Yeah. So I set that off at about 9 o'clock this morning, and I think we're up to 15% when we sat down to do this. So that's how slow our internet is on upload speed. So apologies about not having it done already, but you will be able to watch these back in on YouTube if you wish. You can share them, you can do whatever you wish. And likewise, if you're watching this on YouTube, please, if you find this useful, please consider making a donation to Freedom Thinking. Helps us get on with our work, like we've just been through, all that stuff. Yeah, if you're watching this on catch up, please consider making a donation. This evening, UK time, afternoon, America time, I think. We've got guest speaker Godel Sefu. He's zooming in from New Zealand. He's a gentleman we met out in South Africa when Jen and I were working in Johannesburg. He's a gentleman he was a refugee from the Congo. An amazing man, amazing story, but a man who has deeply seen into the nature of life. Great fella. We've had him speak on our retreats before, haven't we?
Yeah, a while ago now.
Yeah, he's spoken at the international conference as well. He was denied access to come and speak in person because he wasn't deemed
Couldn't get a visa.
Couldn't get a visa. He wasn't deemed acceptable to enter our country. But with the feedback we got from some of the creators or the people who produce the big international conference, were that Godel was actually their favorite speaker out of all the speakers. So he's really worth listening to. He will be on at 7:30 UK time. So please hang around for that.
As always, I thought it'd be nice to see people who were here yesterday, if there was anything that came up, like questions, observations, reflections, anything they've noticed. or if there's just any questions, or if you're like there's an exception or an argument, anything. We just want to hear from people, and then we'll know where to kind of take this afternoon.
And forgive us if you're brand new to this. Just don't worry about yesterday. We will be covering what we spoke about yesterday throughout the day anyway. So all we ask is just sit back and listen. We said this yesterday, but this really isn't about fixing anything. We cannot stress that point enough. If people are listening to this with a view to fixing anything, we ask that you just relax out of that idea. Just relax out of that idea and just listen. Yeah, that's our invitation to you. But yeah, we'd like to just hear what was there anything, how did people find yesterday, and is there anything that stood out for them? Anything, any comments, reflections, or observations? Kath.
Yeah. Just to confirm what Ali said yesterday, really, in that when you kept going like this, that really worked when you were talking about the waves. We're on about the waves, and it's what yogurt to have, and then it's a suicide wave. Doing it like that, it just really, really got it across, and that was it, really. It's not some big thing. It's just the way that you did that really gets the point across. Actually doing that movement, doing that.
And what did you hear in that, Kath?
Just that every wave, you're going to get big waves and small waves, and every wave, basically, they're all part of the same ocean. So every wave's just a thought, and just let that wave go. Once it's gone, it's gone. Not worry about, not think about it, or not put my focus on it. Just let it go away.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
You see, the magnitude of this point, I cannot stress the magnitude of this point, that all experience is the same thing. You see, it eliminates every other possibility for the source of why we feel like we feel, why we behave like we behave. And growing up in a culture that has very, very much believed in the idea that circumstance, where are we at with that one? That circumstance is the source of our experience. You know, that growing up with that idea that our experience is created by circumstances taking place outside of ourselves. What he said, what she said, the weather, work, driving, car accident, anything, doesn't matter what the hell it is, politics, geopolitics. It doesn't matter what it is. This idea we've kind of blindly assumed has been the source of our experience, been the source of our feelings. And we've blamed everything else other than what is actually taking place. And when we realize like that the circumstance and the experience, they're not, there is no umbilical cord between the two. This is not feeding experience. It's not feeding it. It doesn't mean that we don't have an experience of the car crash. You do have an experience of the car crash, but the car crash itself is not the source of the experience. The source of the experience is mind, is consciousness, is thought. The source of the experience is actually taking place from within ourselves. And the magnitude of this point is it's unspeakable. When we find something in life that is 100% absolute 100%, you know, it eliminates all those possibilities of other sources of experience. The blame game dies. The blame game dies. And all of a sudden, an individual will feel themselves, rather than feeling like a victim of life, they'll start to feel empowered. They'll discover, oh shit, I can create this reality. I create this reality. They identify with the creator as opposed to what's created, like identifying with the ocean over the waves. So no, that's really nice, that, Kath, and I really, really appreciate that feedback. Thank you so much. Was anything?
Yeah, I think I remember when I first came across this, that it felt like a cutting of a cord between outside and inside, and this idea of cause and effect. Because I very much lived in the world of that happened and I feel like this, that happening made me feel like this. And it's how I lived my life. And it was just, it seemed to make sense. And I always remember when you said you saw my nephew, who was only about 3 at the time. And up until that point, he was so chill, and like he'd have something and one of his sisters would take it off him and he'd just pick something else up, and he wasn't attached to anything. And then he'd made this, was it? I can't remember what he'd used. He'd made some kind of castle.
Out of straws and sticky bits.
He'd spent ages on it. And then his sister ran down the stairs. I don't think deliberately, but just like ran through it. And it was just all over the place. And you just saw him stand there, look at her, look at what had happened, and then just burst into tears and was going, Lewin, you bad,
no, Lulu,
you bad boy. And it was like you said, it was weird because you got to see the moment where in his understanding, it went from you did that and I feel like this. You doing that made me feel like this. You made me feel like this. So suddenly you see someone outsource their feeling to something else. And as soon as we do that, we become a victim and we become insecure, because suddenly there's some world that we need to kind of manage and control and kind of keep how we want it so that we can feel all right. So when I came across this, and it was like, this is 100%, there is nothing I can experience outside of my own mind. There is nothing anyone can experience outside of their own mind. So it's not to say that there aren't things happening in the world, but the only way that we know it is through our own mind. And it's a constant, and there are no exceptions. And I think the reason that was so powerful for me, because it took off so much thinking from my mind, because I was constantly looking around me to try and figure out why I felt like I did. And even the past became a thing. My past, like I'd spent 10 years in therapy looking for the thing in my past that made me feel like I felt now. What happened to make me like I am now? So this understanding, it cuts that cord and it brings you back to the moment of creation happening now. I feel like I feel now because I think like I think now. Full stop. And like I know within science, they say they get so excited when the constant is found because it's something dependable and reliable and everything can be measured against. And I think in our lifetime, someone has explained something that's been pointed to throughout time, throughout culture, throughout philosophy, religion, theosophy, like that's constant and dependable and reliable. And it's huge. But we so often overlook it. It's like, yeah, that's true. But then, I don't know, we got fed up with our partner, and it totally looks like it's our partner making us feel fed up. The traffic, the weather. Like I'm a bugger for it with the weather. I'm like, oh, it's a miserable day today. I put an emotion on the weather. And it's like, well, some people love it when it's like really soft rain, it's misty. Whereas I'm like, oh, it's a miserable day. So I will say that I came across something at 23 that on a feeling level, on a soul level, it felt of like the magnitude of the truth of it blew my mind. And then on a daily basis, I lose sight of it. But something of that magnitude, I feel like it keeps bringing you back. You keep seeing, whoa, I got totally carried away again. I got totally caught up. But it's something that you then get to go and experiment with and see in your own life. This isn't take our word for it.
No.
And that's just it. We want people to go away. Look for the exception. Is there something you can experience without your mind? Is there something that can happen in the world that creates the exact same feeling in every single person witnessing it? Look for it. And I think that's what I loved. It was go and live, and go and see if this is true. Go and see if this is true for you. And if you look at advertising and the world that we live in, I feel like we're kind of, there is the information out there is the opposite. Buy this car and it will make you happy. Use this product. We're constantly being told that there's something
right move.
Yes,
you're happy.
Find you're happy. There's something you need to have the feeling you want. And I think, like we've said, advertising doesn't really work on us now, because you get onto it and you're like, there is nothing outside that creates a feeling for me, which is why and how we're all different. We all, like, there's certain music that you absolutely love, and Dave puts it on, I'm like, oh God, not that one again.
What's that? Oh,
it's just certain music.
Yeah.
And there's other ones that I love, but we all see and hear things differently. Some people love like heavy metal, and I just can't, it's too much for me. I can't stand it. And then you start to see that even with our own life, something that we absolutely loved and we would get it or listen to it and we'd feel so wonderful, the next time it doesn't have that same feeling. When you get a new car and you love driving around in it, you're like, oh God, look how cool my car is. I love it. It's so clean. It's wonderful. And then suddenly you don't feel like that about it anymore. The car hasn't changed. So I think the reason I had so much respect for Dr. Roger Mills in that first training, because he wasn't trying to be a preacher or a teacher or trying to get people to adopt belief or ideas. He was saying, I found something factual. I found something that's pointing to something constant. Now go away and live and see if it's true for you. And that's what I guess I did. I went and played with it for ages.
And
then
still do.
And then we'd like meet up with a group and we'd be like, oh, but what about this? And then you'd kind of have a discussion, like, oh no, like it's still true. But that's what I like, because it's not about suddenly following or another way of being or taking someone else's word for it. We've got enough of that.
Yeah, there's plenty of people who are offering the idea that, oh, you can be a better version of yourself. But what is yourself? You can have a better life, but what is life? It seems to me like the most fundamental question we can ask as living beings is, what is it? What is it and how does it actually work? And it's something that we have to discover for ourselves. It's through listening to these kind of conversations where somebody's found something, and then listen to them. And if it resonates with you, wonderful. If it doesn't, move on. Not everybody's going to resonate with me. Not everybody's going to resonate with Jenny. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, when we see that on some like comments we get on our YouTube videos, someone's like, that is so amazing. Thank you so much. I've really heard something. Someone else would be like, that is a load of crap.
Yeah.
I can't believe you've even put that up.
Yeah.
Like, it's quite funny because you're like, wow, it's the same video, but
yeah. But this is a conversation about the fundamental nature of life. And as long as we are staring at the details, as in being consumed by things that we want to fix, we're not listening. I want to stress that point. As long as we are consumed by things that we're trying to fix, we're not listening. Okay, we can talk about the details of life. We can talk about them infinitely, because they're never going to stop. The details just keep coming. The details keep coming. Why? Because mind creates. Mind creates experience. You are never going to stop experiencing. That's not the nature of life. Life is an eternal experience. From the moment we're born into this world to the moment we leave, we experience being a human being. We get to play at being a human being. But what is that being a human being? Well, look closely. What is it? You'll find it's all an experience. Some experiences feel nice, some experiences don't feel nice. And the thing is about experience is this experience interacts with this experience. And this experience interacts with that experience. And then I interact with that experience. And we're all interacting experiences, like waves on the ocean. Let's go bigger. Let's take that mind analogy of the ocean and waves bigger. Let's make that about humans. That's about life. That's how it's been used in the past. Throughout time, it's been used insofar as we're all oceans, we're all the same energy taken form. We're all one. That's the oneness of life, is the ocean. So this is a conversation about starting to gain insight into the nature of what life is itself. Now, when people discover that, what they will actually discover is a wordless space that they cannot talk about, but we can talk to it. The actual experience in and of itself is not a concept. It's unconceptualizable. Is that, how do you pronounce? How do you say? What do you say? Unconceptual.
Don't know.
You can't
conceptualize.
Yeah, you can't conceptualize it. It can't be conceptualized. So therefore, it can't be spoken. Which is why people throughout time have used metaphor. They've used story to try and put this point across, in the hope that, as Jesus would say in the Bible, those who have ears to hear, let them hear. You know, not everybody is ready to wake up. And that's fine. That person is absolutely perfect. They're exactly where they're meant to be. Exactly where they're meant to be. But when somebody's ready to wake up, they will start becoming interested in understanding the nature of life. They won't know why, probably. They'll just feel this movement. They'll feel this compulsion to kind of start to look at more esoteric conversation. And when that starts to take place, the individuals start to recognize there's a truth in this somewhere. I can't quite grasp it yet. I know there's a truth in this, but I can't quite grasp it yet. And then at some point, the penny will drop. And when that penny drops, they'll go, oh my God, it's so simple.
But you still can't grasp it.
You still can't grasp it. It's so simple. But that penny dropping is the thing that it's an insight, it's a realization. And like we started off by saying yesterday, the only way human beings grow and change is through insight. We've all experienced insight. It's nothing out of the blue and out of the ordinary. Well, it's out of the blue, but it's not out of the ordinary. You know, we insightfully learn. And when all of a sudden we get insight about the nature of life, we can have either personal insight, where I remember being on one of your retreats, and a man came up at the end. I stood in the toilets with him, and he went, do you know what I've just realised? I was like, no. He went, it's all right for me to see that Liverpool's a shithole. I'm like, great. That if that's what you've taken from this these 3 days, that's wonderful, mate. I'm sure that's one of the best things you could ever have realized. So you can have these personal insights. Well, it'll always be a personal insight, but when you start to gain insight into the universal nature of life, when you start to gain universal insight, that's when the pennies really start to drop, and that's when lives really start to change. When you start to touch on that which is impersonal, when you go bigger than your little problem. And I'm not belittling anybody's problem, but in comparison to the magnitude of life, all problems are tiny. What can appear as a problem to myself is not a problem to Jenny a lot of the time. Computers. Jen, sort this out. I've got a problem with this. She'll come along, sort it out. She'll say to me, Dave, I need this doing. I'm struggling with it. All right, no problem. I'll do that. You see, if problems were actually outside of ourselves, we would all experience the same thing as a problem. Problems are thoughts. That's all a problem is a thought. That's why we can realize our way through a problem. Any problem. Any problem. Wendy, your hands up, love.
Hi there. I'm not going to go on camera because I'm not my best. I'm not feeling great. But
Cold.
yeah, but I love Emma's question in the chat about her willingness to accept what is. But there's a line where we all cross, which is like, okay, but this keeps happening, or I really don't like this. And what struck me was I was looking at a Michael Deal video today, and I love this analogy or this metaphor, whatever you want to call it. He says this conversation uh is about the power of mind, thought, and consciousness. That's what this conversation is about. And what ends up happening is that most of us will say, yes, but, and we'll point to the constructs of this conversation. So his analogy or his metaphor was, we want to talk about paintbrushes that make the paintings of our lives. You know what, that thing that the power of thought is like a paintbrush on a blank canvas. And what we end up talking about is the painting, what came out, the color, the shape, whether we liked it, whether we didn't, etc. So he said that's an interesting conversation, but that's not what the conversation is about. We want to talk about the paintbrushes and not what the paintbrushes make. So I'm a crochet person, right? So I'm like, oh, I can show people my crochet projects, but they might want to know what size hook I used or what kind of yarn I used. And that's the power of that particular creation, is the tools, the stuff that emerged from. And so the tools that all of life emerged from, and Jenny said it beautifully a little while ago, is the only way to know anything. The only way to say, that's a cow, that's my daughter, that's, the sun is out, the sun isn't out, is through the power of mind, consciousness, and thought. And that's what you're all about. Freedom thinking is pointing back to that big universal power from which everything else in the world emanates. Everything. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Wend.
Thank you, Wend.
Correct.
Yeah, I think this understanding doesn't make us passive. But like Wendy was saying, it's not what we're about, is
the details.
the details. But we know that from our own experience in our own life, when we fell out of the details and back into the space, I've got a feel for, a sense of the fact that we are creators, that did something for us. And then what we started creating in our life was different. My relationships changed. I made a whole new group of friends, and actually some of my older friends, our relationships were enriched, and other ones just fell away. Like, we didn't fall out, they just fell away. We were just interested in different things. And I loved listening to Dr. Roger Mills speaking about the work he did in the projects out in America. So one of them he speaks about is Modelo, and then he had Homestead Gardens, and can't remember the other name, but him and his daughter Amy, who then joined him later on, did loads of work with different communities. And some of the stuff going on was gritty. Like, there was one place, I think it was the Homestead Gardens, where they used to just dump bodies there because they knew that the police and the ambulance and stuff were scared to go into those communities. So he chose to get funding to go in to do a project there. And all he did was teach people about their mind, about how reality was created. And over that time, the people within the community that started to become healthy, started to become aware, they organised and sorted out their community. They got rid of the drug dealers. They actually posted wanted signs all over Homestead Gardens. The drug dealers handed themselves in, and we did have a video of all of this. It was incredible. We got to go and walk around with the police officer that helped Dr. Roger Mills, a guy called Jerry Williams. And he was saying, you know, people were getting out of abusive relationships, or their relationship was becoming healthy. The way that they parented their kids changed. People were suddenly getting employment rather than living off the benefits, because they were becoming healthy within themselves. Their community became healthy. And he was saying some of these places that he worked had money thrown at it. They'd have, you know, they'd paint everything, or they'd do this. But until people's consciousness changes, until we start to see our role in our own life, we are the creator, we will continually come up against this idea that there's something that needs to be different for us to be all right. So we feel like a victim, we feel powerless. And it's such an interesting thing, because I could be talking to someone and in my mind, I'm talking about the principles, and then they'll speak and I'll have all these great ideas for their life. And I have to catch myself and get quiet and be like, actually, I want to listen. Like, what great ideas could they come up with? As they settle down, as they start to get a feel for what this conversation points to, what will occur to them? And so much of the time, they might come up with things that popped into my head, but it's so much more powerful when it comes from the person.
Yeah.
And like my mum, I love it. She's amazing. And she's got so many good systems in her house that make the house run smoothly. And I hear her sometimes trying to talk to Dave about things. And why don't you just, she's got these incredible ideas, and it just doesn't go in. Like, it's not, her good ideas aren't right for you. You've got your own systems, but she totally doesn't see that her system isn't the correct system. She just thinks you're doing it wrong. And if you could only adopt her system, you'd be happier.
I love your mum.
But you can see how easy it is. It's easy to do because it makes sense, because in your world, everything you do and say, like, there's logical, it's logical, it makes sense. It's the way to do things. But then we all feel like that. Every single person on this planet sees a reality and it looks true and real for them. And I think, like Wendy said, to keep pointing people to that is our role, is our job, is what we do. And I would say the other of that is through seeing whatever it was that was revealed to me, and I honestly haven't got words for it. You show up from a place of knowing that everybody's all right. You show up knowing that we're all from the same source. And so often you just fall in love with the person you're speaking to.
Yeah.
Like, you just fall in love with people, and you just see how easily caught up we get, because this grand illusion of life is phenomenal. Like, it's phenomenal. No wonder we get caught up in it. And like I said to someone the other day, I'm glad that when I look outside and I see a beautiful sunset, it's not like oh no, it's my thinking about the sunset that makes me feel the beauty. I just get lost in the beauty of it. When I'm with Lucia, I get lost in just the love I feel for that little being. But I also know that my well-being and my good feeling doesn't come from those things. So I can still have a beautiful feeling without a sunset, or without Luce being around me. And that's freeing. But please, I'm like going back to my original point, is please don't see this in any way as passive. That's why I think the work that Roger did was so powerful, because it showed what happened when people got back in touch with what he called their innate health. When they got back in touch with their innate health, they knew how to live their lives.
Yes.
They knew how to interact. They knew, and I would encourage people, if you can, to Google Roger Mills. I don't know how much is up there, but there is a book written by Jack Pransky called Modelo, and it kind of documents the work at that time. And it really shows how powerful we become when we get back in touch with that space, place, whatever you want to call it. It's just words.
Yeah, and it's not some airy-fairy conceptual idea. It's a reality. It's an actual reality. It's a truer reality than this reality we're experiencing now. And I love what you're saying there. You know, this isn't passive. I'm going to read out the question, since Wendy mentioned it. So we are the sole creators of what's created, and we have the free will to change it. I don't blame others for how I feel and think, but when things negatively are occurring and being repeated, then what? Oh, especially when we are being blamed for others' behaviors and realities. As in life, I'm happy to accept what is, but in life, there are some things we don't want to happen. Correct. Correct. There are things in this life that we don't want to happen. It's part of life. Part of life. There are going to be things that happen in this world that we don't want to happen. That's life. It's part of life. You know, we can fight that reality, and we can worry and stress about that reality, or we can accept that reality. Yeah, there's shit that's going to happen in this world, in this life, that we're not going to agree with, we're not going to like. Agreed. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But those things that happen in the world do not have the power to create how you perceive it. Only consciousness does. Only mind does. Only thought does. So it's very easy for us to say, and in that question, it seems to me like somebody is saying, yeah, I see the 100% nature of this, but there's something that's making me feel bad going on. Now, I'm not going to stray away from the truth of the matter. And the truth is, there is nothing other than your mind that creates your experience of whether something is positive or negative. You see, if I had somebody around me who was being how I don't like, that is one potential of how I could experience that. You know, I could experience this person as being, say it was you, being controlling, right? I could look at you being controlling, and not that Jen is, but I'm going to use that as an example. Being
Well,
controlling.
you don't know, I do it by mind control.
Do you?
Yeah.
You little reptilian. I can look at Jen and say, oh, you're being controlling. I've got this story. There you go. I've created a character for my experience. It's controlling. And that this is who Jenny is. She's controlling. This is how I see Jenny. But I could also look at Jen and go that in the next moment and go, wow, Jen's obviously got a little bit of insecurity about this. You know, and I could look at this circumstance that I'm presented with, Jenny looking like she's being controlled, and I could see it from a different point of view. Oh, wow, Jen looks like she's got a little bit of insecurity about this. She feels like she needs to, by looks of things, I don't know, I can't read Jenny's mind. She looks like she needs to kind of control this little bit of whatever's going on to make her feel better. Because Jen's lost in the illusion. And we all do this, you know, and could look at it from the point of view, well, I'm not really bothered what you think. I'm not really bothered how you're going to be with me. You know, I'm really not bothered. It could be anything. I'm just giving 3 examples to one circumstance that you could have different thoughts around, but you would experience something. You'd experience that circumstance different. Like this car crash. Each person experiences a different experience from the car crash. Why? Because everybody lives in their own separate realities.
And we all have our line, and the lines are made up. So we can have a line in the sand of what we think is acceptable. This is acceptable to me, and anything above, anything below that line is unacceptable to me. And that is our right as human beings. And we will all have our lines. We'll all have our ideas. And I remember being on a retreat with George Pransky in London. And I think he did a one-to-one at the front of the room. And this lady was saying that she could forgive her husband for having an affair, but she couldn't forgive the fact that he'd lied. So that's her lines, that's her, and that's her right, and that's what's sort of made sense to her. And there were other people saying, wow, well, I could probably forgive someone lying, but an affair I could never get over. And everyone had a different opinion about that same story, that same thing going on. But that's the thing, like, we have autonomy and we have common sense. Like we're allowed to move in action in life, in a life that we would like, in a way that we thrive, and the way that we enjoy. And I think sometimes people hear this, oh, I need to change my thinking about it, and then I could see it differently. If I change, I hate my job, so I just need to change my thinking about it, and then I'll love my job. And I'm not saying that, because that has happened for people. People that have been like, I hate my job, it ruins my life. They've started learning about this and they've fallen in love with their job again.
Mm.
And other people are like, I hate my job, what else could I do? And they get insight of what to do next. Like, if we can see this just as this is for us. This is for us to see. The truth of it will set us free.
Yep.
And it will bring us insight, and it will bring us creativity, and it will move us and guide us. I remember someone saying the principles does the heavy lifting. Once you get a sense that there's something happening behind the scenes that's been invisible to us, it's been invisible. We've just blindly been almost like, it felt like a puppet. And then you're like, whoa, no, I don't have to be passive in this. I have say, I have choice. Doesn't mean I don't care about someone, but it might be that I'm going to move away in a different direction. Like, there's no prescription with the principles. This isn't about change your thought and like just, oh, you could just look out and you know, there's a hurricane going on and everything's being destroyed, and go, oh no, I just need to change my thought and think this is a wonderful thing that's happening. You're allowed, like, you know, I'm sad that this is happening.
Mm.
Like,
There's
this isn't
no-
about a way
Yeah.
to think or how to think or change how you think and then view someone differently. The fact is, through new thought, we see different.
Yeah.
Through insight, we grow and change. And I think if we get interested in that space within us, we allow that growth and that change to happen. But it like you say, and that's why I've loved using my mum as an example, because she so often is trying to change someone else. But what she doesn't see, and she sees their misunderstanding, and she can kind of see why it's playing out as it is for them. But she doesn't see her misunderstanding and how outraged she is about it, and how that person not changing is pissing her off. It seems totally justified, because like, if you just change, then I could feel all right, and you could feel all right. I'm doing it for your own good. And that's where we start to see like this idea of, I remember it being described to me as justified negativity. It's so easy to think that because we've seen something, someone else needs to see it to be all right, or for us to be all right. And that's the same misunderstanding. This is the most freeing thing I've ever learned. And I've loved watching people that I've worked with, or being on trainings, or being at conferences, and seeing the lightness of being that can come from this. Because you're free. You're free to think again. You're free to change your job. You're free to move. You're free. We're not telling anybody what to do or what not to do.
Yeah.
We're not telling people how to feel or how not to feel. We're saying that our experience is an inside job. And as we see that built into this system, like the power of mind, the word mind is what Sid used, or what came to him. That intelligence, that deep intelligence, knows how to live a universe or multi-universes or whatever it is. That same intelligence is what we're built from and made from. There's a deep intelligence that we are.
It's the intelligence that is our intelligence. And I encourage people for over this next 3 days, if you have something nagging on your mind, relax out of it. Relax out. Please. Please. If there's something that is, I need to fix this, I ask you again, and I ask you with good reason, because if you are listening through that filter, you're not listening. You're not listening. You're not listening from a space of openness. You're listening from a space of contraction. If you open the door, you can walk through. If you have the door shut, contracted, only a fraction open, you're not going to fit through it. And we want people to walk through the door. The door is within us. The only person who locked the door was us. You are
I think you did the rainbow one.
No, I wasn't. I was actually going to do my mum's metaphor. This is something my mum drew at community group, and I love it. She's on here, Margaret Ellery. My mum stood up in front of everyone and she said,
We will be auctioning this one off as well.
yeah,
But all proceeds go to Margaret for this one.
yeah. She said, she stood up and she got a pen and she said, I was born as an infinite potential, like this canvas. Like what Wendy was just saying about painting. You know, everybody's interested in the picture. But what about the medium? What about the paint? What about the pen? What about the paintbrush? What about the canvas? You can paint infinite amount of pictures on this canvas. You could draw whatever the hell you want. Polar bear, rhubarb, I don't know, self-portrait, sun, anything you wish you could draw upon this. And she said, Mum said, this is how I came into the world. She said, I came in as an infinite potential. And she said, throughout my life, she said, without knowing it, what I did was I created this tunnel around myself. She said, and all the bricks that made up this tunnel were my beliefs, my thoughts, what I thought was true, what I thought was false, what I thought was real, what I thought wasn't real, what I thought was possible, what I thought wasn't possible, who they are, what they're like, blah, 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 blah. Okay. She said, before I knew it, she said, what actually had happened is I'd become narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned. I like this analogy. I became narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned. Now, Mum saw the tunnel. Most people aren't aware of the tunnel. The tunnel is thought. The tunnel is purely made of thought. And people don't see it because they see via thought. They feel via thought. So we don't get to see the tunnel because it's behind the experience. But Mum, for whatever reason, got to realize the tunnel. This is a metaphor. She got to realize that she had condensed her life into such a narrow little field of view. She said, I could no longer see this infinite. All I could see now was my beliefs and my thoughts, what I thought was true and real. And I mean, when I first came across this, I was pretty hardcore, and I call it foie gras. I used to get the goose, especially my family, by the throat, and I used to force feed them this, what I'd learned, what I discovered. And Mum, God bless her, she switched off. She's like, no, leave me alone. I don't blame her. But bit by bit, eventually my sister, she heard and she woke up. And then when Lise woke up, Mum got interested. And Mum used to come to community groups and she started listening. And I remember then drawing, she said, what's happened since I started to listen is, she said, this tunnel's crumbled. She said, without me doing anything and without me being aware of it, she said, a lot of these bricks have fallen out. She said they haven't all gone, is what she actually said. They haven't all gone, she said, but many of them have fallen away. She said, and I'm starting to get a clearer view of life itself. All of a sudden, her narrow-mindedness has become more expanded. Her tunnel vision has become more vista view. Okay. If we have a brick in mind right now, you're not listening, love. Please. Please listen. if we have a brick, that we are trying to fix, we have mistakenly believed that that is something actually more solid than what it actually is. Another name for this tunnel is the ego. The ego is literally everything. My favorite description of ego is from Sid Banks. I think it's the simplest way of saying it. He said, the ego is everything you believe to be true about yourself and this world. Everything you believe to be true about yourself and this world is ego. What does that mean? It means that everything we believe to be true about ourselves, who we think we actually are, is one, it's an illusion, and two, it's the false self. It's the false self. It's not who you are. If you believe that you are this limited, say, I don't know, I'm a socially anxious person. I was speaking to somebody quite recently, and they were saying, oh, I'm a socially anxious person. I sat down with them. First of all, they won't put on the camera. And then within a few minutes, I blagged them. They put the camera on, looked a little bit shy. Within 10 minutes, completely conversing. Right. Are you a socially anxious person right here, right now? No. So are you actually a socially anxious person if that can change? Are you actually a depressive if that can change? Are you actually an anxious person if your anxiety can disappear? If it's not permanently there? No. It's a brick. It's simply a brick. It's a thought. It's an idea of a mistaken identity. It's not who we are. It's not who we are. It's not what we are. What we are is something that we are the magic of life itself. We are the magic and mystery of life itself. Yes, the details are created from the mind. 100%. This very moment right here is created as I see it right here, right now. I see it as from the point of view as a human being. Very, very much so. You know, we haven't come across this and then all of a sudden transcended being human. No, we've discovered that being human is actually the thing that we're all looking for. People want to have a spiritual experience, realize what you are. Realize what you are, because that's the only thing you're actually uncovering. But what you are isn't. People meditate for years trying to see past the ego. I'm trying to see past the ego, but when you realize what the ego actually is, you realize it's actually nothing that stands in the way. It doesn't have any power. The ego is a ball of thoughts. This tunnel doesn't really exist. We've always been infinite potential. We're always infinite potential. The only thing is we think and it appears real and we assume that's the only thing that can take place. It's the only thing that can happen. But we are infinite potential. We always have been. And the more we wake up to that, the more we start to question life. And we're like, wow, I thought that was true about that person, but I've seen it differently. I love Dan, who's on here, the bloke the lassie you didn't like at work. And then just quickly explain that, would you? The lady you didn't like at work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't work there anymore because I've gone self-employed, but there was a woman that she started after me, and what they used to do is they used to bring everyone around all of our pods just to like introduce them and welcome them. And from the get-go, I just had this sort of vibe that we weren't going to be friends or anything like that. And I don't know, and then for about 3, 4 months after that, I was just very sort of standoff. And then when I had my awakening, I was like, this person's done absolutely nothing wrong to me whatsoever. And the only reason why that I thought that she wasn't a very nice person is because of a vibe that I got that I was actually just making up myself. And then we become WhatsApp buddies, as I so famously described. Um, yeah, and she actually messaged me about 3 weeks ago, just after New Year. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's strange. It was a brick that I'd put in place myself, I guess.
Yeah. And it's wonderful when we start to see it, because once you get a glimpse of that point, it opens up the possibility for everything. Once you catch onto, first of all, you have to catch onto the trick. And the way you catch onto the trick is, for whatever reason, in a moment, it's falling into this space of openness. It's starting to see, and it's just something that people experience. You know, we know many people who experience this, who've experienced it. Many people, and their lives suddenly they wake up and they go, "Oh, life isn't what I thought it was." But it is exactly, it shows up exactly as I think. People show up, everybody you meet is a character within your mind. I'm not saying the body, but the character you meet. And not everybody sees Jenny. There's Jenny that I see. And like, my mother's on here. Thankfully, my mum doesn't see me the way Jenny sees me, because that would be really wrong. But, you know, that you can see that if that's true, then we must be making up the character for everybody we meet too. So we both have a role to play in the dynamic in a relationship. Everybody we meet is a character that we assign to that person. And that character is created through what we believe about that person. Jesus Christ said in the book of Thomas, "It's done unto you as you believe." He's talking about reality. Your reality will be done unto you as you believe. As you believe, so you will see. So you will experience. You experience via thought. Whatever you believe, if you believe in that there are certain people that shouldn't be in this country or whatever, or there is a certain person who shouldn't be prime minister, president, or whatever, if you believe that, then you're going to have an experience that absolutely brings that belief to life. And you're going to live it as your life. But then the moment that belief changes, the reality that you encounter will change. Why? Because reality and experience are the same thing. Reality is an experience. The reality we see is the experience of our life. There is no escaping this point. There is no escaping it. But what it does open us up to when we discover that point is the infinite nature of who and what we are. And we are free to walk through this world to create whatever reality we so wish. All of our behaviors come from thought feeling. Where do feelings come from? Well, feelings are a reflection of the perspective we're holding. A feeling is a reflection of the perspective that we are holding. What is the perspective created from? It's the way we're thinking about something. Okay, thought and feeling don't look like in our everyday experiences, though they're connected. They're 100% unified. They're inseparable. You start thinking angry thought, you're going to start feeling angry. You start thinking loving, compassionate thought, you're going to start feeling loving and compassionate. And our behavior will be a consequence of that.
Can you speak a bit to that?
I've read it. Have you read it?
Yeah.
You speak to it then.
So there's a question in the chat kind of around wisdom, and if it feels like you're kind of present and you've made a decision from that place and it's amazing, and then suddenly all your beliefs start kicking in and you get scared to actually go forward with whatever it was that came to you to do. How do you know? Kind of, is it coming from wisdom? Is it my true self? And if it was coming from wisdom, surely it would come with a good feeling. That's often spoken about. We don't often speak about wisdom in that way,
No.
but I guess I can only really talk from experience. When I was going through quite a lot of turmoil, and
should we read the question out so people are aware of the question?
it was in the chat.
Okay.
It's not anonymous.
Okay.
I decided, so I was decide, like, when Dave and I got together, I was married, so it was a really, really hard time, and I had to tell my ex-husband that I'd fallen in love with someone else and I wanted to separate. So when I was very quiet, I knew I wanted to leave, and then I'd get full of fear of, like, what does this mean for our life? We've created a business together, our families are very intertwined, I don't want to hurt anybody. And then I get quiet again and it'd feel like that was what was right for me in my life. And I struggled with it for about six weeks of just, and I needed time, I needed space away from it all. But for me, the only way has ever been to allow my mind to quieten down and see what's left, and then move from there. And the truth of this is that we are not responsible for other people's feelings. We can't please everyone. We cannot. We have to, we can be kind, we can be loving, listen to ourselves. And I feel like my understanding of the principles carried me through that time. It brought me the words I needed at different moments to have conversations I needed to have. I went easy on myself. So I haven't got this is all from what Dave talked about. I haven't now got a parallel life that I could compare it to. So I can't look at the other life where I chose to stay, or another life where I chose to go off and be on my own. Like, I haven't got those three things. I haven't got my life, the life where I stayed, and the life where I went off and did my own thing to compare this against, to choose whether or not I think I was wise to leave or not wise to leave. Was it wisdom or not wisdom? But the way that I see life now is that as life unfolds, it's in its perfection. So it's not to say that we can't learn, it's not to say that we can't make better choices or decisions in the future, whatever, but it happened. So it had to happen. It was never going to happen any other way. But I can never compare a different life to it to see whether, oh, actually in that other life, it worked out way better. Or, oh God, I'm so glad I did that, because otherwise it would have been terrible. So we haven't got that comparison. So it'll only be our judgment to whether or not we've acted on true self or intuition or not. And it's only really in hindsight, when we look back, that we do judge it. But I feel like that was something that's been so powerful for me, is when the noise quietens down, what's left. So I don't know if that's helpful, if you want to speak to it now that you've read it.
Yeah, you see, wisdom to me, like Jen says, it's not a word we use a lot because it's such a loaded word. Some people in the Three Principles community throw it around left, right, and center. We don't. Wisdom to me would be, this is my definition from my experience. Wisdom to me is something that is information that is brought to us from beyond anything my intellect can dream up. There are moments when that happens. So, for example, I was doing some healing. I do healing for people if they need it. I was doing some healing on a friend of ours who's hurt her back, and I asked, what's the best thing I could do? And the wisdom that came through, it was, ignore the leg she's hurt, she's complaining about, look at her ankle, for whatever reason. And I got that information through an experience of my own ankle, left ankle, go down there. And I went onto her left ankle, and I said, is your left ankle okay? And she was like, no, it's not, it's fine. Nothing wrong with left ankle. I was like, oh, right, okay. Okay. And I started to rub it, and all of a sudden she's went, ah, what the hell's that? And her ankle was so sore. She didn't know, but her muscles around her ankle was so sore. And that was kind of information from beyond my intellect. It wasn't my intellect that told me to do that. My intellect would say, oh, work on her back because she's got a back problem. But when I asked, the information that came through was, look at that other ankle. And she was in agony, and she said, I can't believe I've been living with that. What's that? She said, it must be compensation. I don't know what the hell it was, but we freed it up, and it freed up, and I could touch it afterwards, and it didn't hurt. But to me, wisdom is information from beyond the intellect. It's unmistakable. If we're in to and fro, is this intellect or is this wisdom? Then we've got an intellect question. You know, there are moments like, for example, I had a pretty bad bust up with my family earlier on last year. And I am somebody who prays. I pray for information. I speak through myself into the whole. I ask for help. And I prayed and I asked, and I asked for guidance on this. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was wide awake, and I had a head full, and all of a sudden, in the back of my mind, I could hear this voice speaking to me. And the only way I could liken it was like, it was so quiet. It was like being in a crowded cafe, but I want to listen to the table over there. I want to listen to what they're saying because they're interesting. But there's all this noise going on around me, and I had to strain. I'd have to strain to listen to that table. And I had to strain and focus all my attention on these words. And the words that I received was, the soul does not measure. That's what I heard. And I was like, carry on, carry on, carry on. I'm listening, I'm listening, I'm listening, I'm listening. Oh, I missed it. I thought to myself, oh, I've missed it. But I repeated that statement because that glimpse of whatever was said, that the soul does not measure, I thought, well, I'm going to hold on to that, and I'll have a look at that in the morning. And with that, I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning. The memory came back of what happened. The soul does not measure. And as I looked at it, I realized it was actually a complete statement. And it was actually one of the most wonderful pieces of information I've ever received. So simple, so all-encompassing. The soul does not measure, it doesn't judge. The soul doesn't measure how spiritual we are, how well we're doing in life, how terrible we are, how fortunate, unfortunate we are, how successful we are. It doesn't measure any of that. It simply experiences. It experiences without judging. That is why we can have infinite experience. If the soul judged and measured, it would contract our experience to a certain bandwidth, but that would narrow down the infinite power of thought to a certain volume of thoughts. But that's not what we actually experience as human beings. We get to experience as a collective infinite thoughts. Infinite, and a thought is a potential. A thought is a potential. That's what a thought is. It's a potential of the infinite. But that did not come from my intellect. That information was so kind of mysterious at the time. It still is, I suppose, to this day, but it was so mysterious the way it comes in, and it suddenly you are given a piece of information for whatever reason, and why then, and I don't know. But we receive information from beyond our intellect. A revelation, another one I experienced was when I had a bit of a banner with your mum and over a hedge. And the next day, I was really upset I'd had this barney with your mum. And the next day, I woke up and I was a little bit shell-shocked. I was a little bit upset that all this had happened. And I just sat in the bath. And all of a sudden, again, this voice came into my head. And it said, you know, the further you go into suffering, the further into unreality you have entered. The further you go into suffering, the further into unreality you have entered. Unreality. Unreality. Now, in my life, I've been gifted the experience of realizing a reality far greater than this reality right here, right now.
Oh, sorry, that's blowing out cold here, by the
Is
way.
it?
Yeah.
And I know that reality is beautiful. It's unconceivably, incomprehendibly, uncalculably, phenomenally, amazingly beautiful. And it is the heart of our being, is the essence of life itself. So suffering, it's true. The further we go into suffering, the further into unreality we have entered, the further into the illusion we have created. The more illusion we have created and believed in, the more tunnel, the thicker our tunnel, the more kind of confining our tunnel is our suffering. But that is the further the further into suffering we go, the further into unreality we have entered. That statement came again not from my intellect, it came from beyond my intellect and into my awareness, where I had chance to ponder it and go, that's so simple and so true. Wisdom will always be simple. If it's not simple, it's not wisdom. It's a game of the intellect, it's a game of the ego. Now, the wisdom I believe this individual may be talking about may be, I know what's right. I know what I need to do, but I'm afraid. I think that would probably be a fair assumption. And I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong. But one of the things when we are on this path of awakening, what we will face a lot of the time is our fears. We will stand face to face with our fears many, many times, only to see through them and see they actually have no power. We are the one that has the power. You see, if you look at our fears, what they're based in is time. They're based in a future or a past. And we experience that in the now. So I believe that what this individual may be talking about is, I know I need to do something, but I'm afraid of the outcome future-based, trying to anticipate something that doesn't exist, and we create a story about it here and now. And what we're actually terrifying ourselves with isn't a future, because it's impossible to be afraid of the future. It is 100% impossible to be afraid of the future. Nobody's afraid of the future. You can't be afraid of something that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist to be afraid of. But if we look closely, we'll realize what we're actually afraid of is an image or an idea that we've generated about what the future may look like. That is what we're afraid of. We're actually afraid of a thought. Check it out. See if I'm wrong. None of us, we live in a dynamic universe full of twists and turns and changes, chops and changes. All these different timelines people are on. What's a timeline? A timeline is lives moving with decisions made, moving in the directions of decisions made. Timelines are born. If I walk out of here now and murder somebody, I open up a whole new timeline for possibilities in my life. One that could really make a mess of my life. Or I could meet wonderful people on that path. I don't know. I don't know. And again, it's coming back to that point. We spoke about the I don't know yesterday a lot on yesterday's. And coming back to that I don't know is really the truth. I don't know is the truth. But it can be really, really easy for us to believe that we know something or we know somebody. That will always limit our possibilities of interactions and moving forward. But, however, moving forward, we will act on decisions made. We will act on thought. I think this individual knows what they need to do, but they just keep scaring themselves. The wisdom is never going to scare you. Wisdom will never scare you. Wisdom is not scary. Wisdom is information from the soul. The soul is pure love. I don't know what love is. I know how it feels, but I don't know what it is. Like I know water feels wet. Like I always say, water is so much more than just the feeling of wet. Love is so much more than anything we can comprehend. It is the essence, it is the fabric of existence. And that's what people experience when they wake up. They see through the illusion of life and they discover the creator. They have an experience of discovering the creator. And how do you have an experience? Through yourself. So where is this creator self? Well, it's within. Everything we are searching for is within. That's why the mystics throughout time have said, stop looking outside, start looking within. In Buddhism, they say, stop trying to fix the world. Fix yourself, the world will change. Why? Because the world is a reflection of within. It's done unto you as you believe.
I think it is.
Eh?
Not fix, it says change.
Go on, what is it then?
It's like be the change you want to see. Don't try and
Yeah,
change the world.
that was Gandhi, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Be the change.
It's
Yeah.
change rather than fix, I think.
Right, okay.
Just be pedantic.
No, I appreciate it. But this is always pointing back within ourself. But like we said earlier on, this is not an anesthetic to life. People are in search of this anesthetic for life. There is no anesthetic to life, except life comes with its challenges. Make peace with that. And your life will become easier because you will have dropped a war. Accept life comes with its challenges. If it didn't, we wouldn't grow like we do. It's through challenge that we grow. It's through humility that we find love and compassion for people. And often we find humility through challenge. I gained an awful lot of humility through going to prison. I had such judgment of those people. I had such judgment of people who had affairs. Such judgment of people who drank too much, took drugs. But going through the experience really, it brought humility to my life. It humbled me. It made me more open to loving more people. Accept the challenge. There isn't an anesthetic to life. You don't need one. Because you are built to be here. You're meant to be here. Otherwise, you won't be here. It's that simple. This universe does not make mistakes.
Let's do the animals.
20 minutes. We're going to take a 20-minute break. 4:30 UK time. 20 minutes wherever you are in the world. Thank you all for being here.
So 10 to.
10 to 5 UK time. 20 minutes, everyone. People are going to drop back in a few minutes. Okay. We just wanted to just expand a bit on when people, what freedom thinking is actually about. You know, when people come and work with us one-to-one, we have an idea in mind, and it's the same idea in mind that we have when we do these retreats. You know, I don't know what's best for your life. I don't know what you should do. But what we do know, what we can share with people is we can help point people in a direction of clarity. We can help point people in a direction of truth. The problem with this truth is many people don't know it actually exists. And so to them, it's an elusive idea. It's a thought, which is what we do. We create a thought construct about something we hear. We create a thought identity for it. And we go, oh, it'll look like that. You know, when I start to understand what Dave and Jen are going on about, or what Sid Banks is going on about, oh, my life will look like this, but my life doesn't look like that yet. So therefore, I must be flawed. I'm flawed at the moment. And so we really have one goal. Like I say, we don't really give advice on what to do. I think you should do this. I think you should do that. I don't know what's best for your life. You know, going to prison, example. That at the time was one of the most horrific things. It was not where I expected my life to end up, blah, blah, blah. And I would have done anything to change it in that moment. Would I change it now? No. No, I wouldn't. I didn't know how beneficial going to prison was actually going to be for the rest of my life. And so when it comes to life, we just don't know what's right for you. Yeah. We just don't know what's right for you. Like we say, life's going to bring with it challenges. Sid Banks said, life is a contact sport. You're going to get your knocks. Life is a contact sport. You're going to get your knocks. Accept it. What our role in this interaction is to help point people to a space within themselves that once an individual has seen, realized, accepted, acknowledged this point, this space, it's not a belief, it's before belief. Their lives will start to make sense. Their fears will die. Doesn't mean they won't experience fear, but their fears will come and go. Their stories will start to collapse about themselves, about people, about the world, about everything they've been told, because they will have realized something so true about life, something they couldn't see beforehand, something that was invisible to them. They were so mesmerized by the paintings, and they'll look at the paintings continuously, trying to find which one fucked them up, which is the one where I went wrong. So when people ask us, could you speak to this? Could you speak to that? Yes, we can. We can, but it is a distraction from the point. It's a distraction from the point Jenny and I are actually wanting to make. We can speak to it, certainly. But it is a distraction from the actual point, the point that is awakening. The point is awakening, realization. Awakening is a real thing. In fact, it's a truer reality than the reality we all sit in this dimension of being. And that's the point. That's why we're all here. We're all here to expand and grow. You don't expand and grow by narrowing. You expand and grow by opening up, dropping ideas, dropping that nagging little voice that's saying, talk about this, talk about that. What about this? What about that? That's just the intellect chattering away to us.
More waves.
Just more waves. These waves are distracting. We said on day one, we asked that people sit quietly. When we work with people, we ask to work with people over 4 days. And the reason why we ask people to work with them over 4 days is because day one, they're a bit shell-shocked, really. We're getting to know them and they're sharing. We let people share whatever they need to share, and we have a bit of a conversation. And then day two, we generally find people are like getting a bit argumentative, a bit confused, a bit, what are you on about? And we'll go, okay, great, sit down. Like one time there was a girl who came and worked with us, and day two she came back and she said, we said, are you all right? And she went, well, I don't really know what the hell I'm doing here. She was 16 years old. I don't know what the hell I'm really doing here. I'm like, go on. And she said, well, no offense, but you're not exactly good role models, are you, for life? Jenny, what are you? You're just an ex-anorexic. And Dave, you've been to prison. You're not exactly good role models, are you? That was day two. And we said, all right, fair enough. Sit down. Thanks for letting us know. And we just said, look, the reason why we're doing this over 4 days is because this is exactly what we expect. People start, the ego kind of flares up a bit. It kind of like, yeah, but what about what I know? What about what I know? I know these two are whatever. And then was it that day? I think it was that day, wasn't it? Lunchtime that day. We were just talking. This girl suddenly burst into tears. And we said, all right, let's have brew, let's have break, let's have lunch. Let's break for the afternoon. And I just took her by the hand and we went out into the garden. I said, you all right, what's going on? She said, I'm crying for two reasons, I think. She said, firstly, I'm crying because I cannot believe how much time I've spent talking about my problems. She's been in therapy since she was 7 years old. Tiny kid. I've been in therapy since I was 7. I can't believe how much I've spoken about all my problems. And she said, the second reason I'm crying is because I'm relieved. I've just realized there's nothing wrong with me. That's why we do these over 3 days. If somebody comes and works with us personally, we'll ask for We'll ask for 4 days. And it's because sometimes it takes time for us to quieten down to actually start to listen. Sometimes it can take time. We live in the world. It's so get up and go. How many people crammed as much as they could into that little break? Oh, I need to do that. I need to do this. I had to go and put ducks away. I had to make a cup of tea, get back to some texts, for chat with Jen. Can't do all that. 20 minutes. Only got 20 minutes. Only got 20 minutes. We're always in such a rush. We're so busy in here. That is where the pace of life is dictated. So throughout our experiences, we generally don't give advice. We guide people to the space that exists within themselves so that they know that they can deal with everything that they face. If you don't believe it's real, you don't believe it's there, look back at your life. Look back at it. Check it out. Look at the hard times. Remember those hard times. Remember those hard times? Remember those times you never thought you'd ever get through? Heartbreak, the pain, the difficulty, the trouble, the fear, the worry, the anxiety, hatred, perhaps. You never thought you'd get through it. You couldn't see a way out of it. And somehow, without any effort, it just became a memory. You got through it. You dealt with it. Well, it's because as human beings, we deal with everything we face. There's a line in a song, sorry, that I absolutely love. It's by a group called Outlandish. I said this to a Muslim lady who was working with once. Outlandish is a group in America. I quoted this line and it said, it's in a song called Warrior Warrior by Outlandish. Brilliant song, I love it. I said to this, I quoted this lyric and she went, that's outlandish. How do you know about outlandish? I said, I love outlandish. She went, oh, my husband produces them. All the people. But the lyric goes, God never promised you days without pain. Laughter without, God never promised you days without pain.
Laughter without sorrow, some without rain.
Laughter without sorrow, sun without rain. But he did promise strength for you every day. And I feel like that is just such a beautiful lyric. You know, we're coming. We often think that if we're feeling in a despondent way, or we're facing trouble or trials in our life, that somehow we're getting life wrong. No, it's what life is about. The trials of life. That's really what we're here for. We're here to explore the dynamics of human life. But when you realize it's all energy, everything's energy. Your thoughts are energy. Your feelings are what that energy feels like. You are energy. Whatever energy is, I don't know. I don't know what energy is. Something that is the source of form, infinite vibrations. When you realize that you are energy, you realize you can't be destroyed by any of it. You cannot be destroyed by any of it. Suddenly that puts you in a very, very powerful position to just live life. Ask a physicist. Ask a physicist, is everything energy? And they'll say, yep. Yeah, everything's frequency. Frequency is energy. We're not an exception to that. Sorry, Jen's had to go. Lucia's just come back. We are not an exception to that. We are infinite frequencies. Infinite possibility. Every single possibility is a frequency state, a vibratory state. Everything is a vibration. Every single thought we experience comes with its own unique frequency signature. That's why everything feels different. But the ocean itself is infinite frequency potential. That's who and what we actually are, and the ocean cannot be destroyed. Why? Because it doesn't exist in the realm of the physical dimension. I can destroy this glass. I can smash it to pieces. It doesn't create no less glass. It doesn't create more glass. I can just destroy it. But as I destroy something in the physical dimension, I create something else. Destruction and creation are the same thing, as one of our friends pointed out to us. Destruction and creation are the same thing. Paul Morgan Summers. But we're so afraid of the destruction element of life, not realizing that quite often it's in the destruction that something more beautiful is born. If something stays the same way, then it's not evolving, and that's not the nature of life. Life evolves. So in order to evolve, things have to change. In order for things to change, things have to disappear. Look at the fossil records. Look at our lives. And here we are. Here we are. We made it. In spite of all the ups and downs and the hard times, we've made it. Doesn't matter how you feel, you've made it. How you feel is how you feel. It's not an indication of who you are. It's an indication of your frequency of being now. That's it. It's just an indication of the potential of frequency that you could be existing in. That's all that is. It'll come and it'll go. Why? Because nothing is static, everything changes. I think it was Ram Dass, I heard Ram Dass say, make friends with change. Make friends with change. Make friends with change. Those who fear change are fighting life itself. But it's interesting, we always go to the negative when, as human beings, we tend to go to the negative when it comes to change. We're like, oh, it's all going to go to shit. What if it all goes to shit? We're never like, what if it all turns out beautifully? How beautiful can this actually turn out? I don't know, I look back at my own life and all the things that I thought were my life going to shit turned out to be my life turning out beautifully in a totally different way that I never saw coming. That's what makes my life exciting. Because I don't know what's coming. But I know I cannot be destroyed. I know that even in death, you cannot be destroyed. You don't get destroyed at death. The body does. The body will go back to the earth, where it came from, what it's made of. Elements of the earth. But that enlivens it. That when you see a dead body, or you go and say, I remember going to see my Uncle Malcolm after he passed, and we all said, oh, well, he's not there anymore. He's not there anymore. His body was, but he wasn't. It's interesting, in our language, we know the truth. We speak the truth. He's not there anymore. He's not enlivening that vessel, that body anymore. That machine, that biology, that spirit, that soul, that thought process, that infinite potential that existed within and had its preferences and its dislikes and its judgments and its ideas, no longer needed the body and it left. But he didn't get destroyed. Or should I say, the moment I say he is a physical thing. That being did not get destroyed. And the only reason why I know that is because I experienced it after a fight once. That too is a movement from within ourself. It's not that anybody goes anywhere. I don't know if I spoke about this yesterday. It's not that anybody goes anywhere. It's a movement from through ourself. It's a change in reality. The reality is not outside of us, it's within us. Heaven is not outside of ourself, it's within ourself. It's the only place we'll ever experience it. Heaven is just a name to describe the higher frequencies of consciousness, which would mean that hell and heaven are states of being. Hell being that confinement of tunnel, contraction of mind, rigidity. That's why the wise throughout time have said, if you forgive, you'll enter heaven. Why? Because the moment you forgive, you open up to love, and love is the higher dimensional frequencies of being. It's really logical and simple. They're not places you go after death, isn't heaven and hell. They're states of being here and now. Experience both. For our message, there's nothing to do. I reiterate that point. There is nothing you need to do to become that creates reality, to become that spiritual soul, to become that magnificence of life. We're all already it. Sid Banks said, everyone's enlightened, they just don't know it. We're made of enlightenment. Enlightenment is simply seeing what's true as opposed to what's false, discovering what's real as opposed to what's an illusion. That's real doesn't change. It's eternal. That changes is an illusion. This body changes. It's never static. It's in a constant state of motion. But our nature, our spiritual nature, our true identity, our true self, our divine beingness, that doesn't change. And that's the thing that we're starting to wake up to. Because when we bring that aspect, and we realize that aspect back into our experience, everything changes. But all it is some people call it holy. Somebody's discovered their wholeness. But what is whole? It's bringing the other part back into yourself that you didn't know actually existed. It always existed, but you realize it, and you realize, oh, there's this other part. There's this part before this reality that is taking place. I've been so mesmerized by this reality, I didn't even consider that there was more to me than just a story that I've been telling everyone and myself and limiting myself to. I'm not just a ball of thoughts, a bunch of memories. And sometimes it happens all at once to people, and sometimes it's bit by bit. No right or wrong. Sometimes I think people want these really big, amazing experiences of, whoa, blown apart. But trust me, it doesn't make your life easier on one hand. But I feel like those who have incremental realization, I often think that's far kinder. It's like there's this kind of, what's the word? Transition, which allows people around them to transition at the same time, which means families generally don't get divided and people don't think they've gone mental and stuff like that. And they find it easier to integrate each realization in within themselves into their world. It's less savage, I suppose. But there really isn't a right or wrong. The soul doesn't measure. So yeah, I just wanted to address that point. We don't give people we don't give people advice. It's not our, I don't know what's best for anybody's life. The only advice I would give would be start to become curious about the nature of life itself. That would be the only advice. Because once you start to discover that, you realize you're free. This tunnel, this prison, it's a ball of thoughts. It's an illusion. Right. Ishka still here. Super nanny's here. Oh. I'm just saying we don't give advice.
That's what you were saying when I left. That's
Yeah.
a long time to be saying that.
It's a very long time.
I've been gone. Good 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing that popped into my head to speak about was how before coming across the principles, I always used to think I knew what people were thinking. I know what they're thinking. I know what they were thinking. I know, and I can tell because of their expression or and I was so convinced that even actually when they would tell me that that's not what they were thinking, I'd be like, no, you're not telling the truth because I know what you're really thinking. Then it was really weird. I remember sitting there and that my first 3 days was such a strange experience because it was like this crumbling of ego, but like things falling off, things just kind of, or things showing, and it was like, wow, I don't know what someone else is thinking. I can't read their minds. Like I can have an idea, and sometimes I might be onto something, but you're better off having conversation and talking to people rather than just living like you know. And you still sometimes catch me doing it, and you're like, have a conversation. You don't know that's what's going on. But I love how, like Dave says, there have been so many things that I feel have been insights for my life, personal insights that have been helpful. And then there are the universal insights that is true for everybody. And I think the little personal ones just help us have a nicer life, different interactions. And sometimes the impersonal kind of the nature of things, like the truth behind things kind of insights are incredible. But then what seems to happen is we then keep trying to grasp back to have that feeling or that experience of that insight again, because it feels so amazing. And then we miss the life stuff. We miss just the everyday beauty of this moment. And I think there's somebody who he had been to a few True Principles things, but I feel like he had his own experience of waking up or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, when he was 14 years old. There's an incredible guy, and there was just a few things that he said to me that,
Is this Paul?
yeah,
I just mentioned Paul just a moment ago.
shifted things for me so much. And one of them was when he said, because I was there and I was kind of, I had a lot of, I kind of had gone to him. It was probably the first time since coming across the principles where I felt like I really needed to speak to someone. I needed someone else's kind of guidance. And he listened and he listened, and then what he'd heard in what I said, and he just said to me, and he's Welsh, he's got his, and he always has a twinkle in his eye, and he just said, Jenny, you do know, once it's seen, there's no one there to see it. And I just sort of sat with it for a moment. And I could see that my ego had been trying to look for insight, trying to look for more understanding. But when we're talking about this blank canvas is another way of describing the oneness. And it takes two to see. So it's only in our ego, our character, our personality that we get to have an experience as a separate someone. And I realised I'd been almost trying to rid myself of ego and trying to get enough understanding that I'd always be this blank canvas. And kind of what it felt like a gift, because I was like, oh, like all of life is incredible and rich. And this blank canvas is the source. But to have an experience and to be a me and have relationships, I'm going to have ideas and I'm going to feel separate. And it's okay. And it's like my search for deeper understanding kind of stopped. And suddenly I was flooded with so much more insight. And the way that I shared the principles started to change again. And I felt like it's such a easy misunderstanding. We can preoccupy ourselves with searching for that next deep feeling or that next expansiveness, or to rid ourselves of ego and character, because that's what we think is going to make us feel amazing. But that simple statement of Jenny, once it's seen, there's no one there to see it. I was like, and another thing he said was, because I did feel like, God, I'd spent 10 years creating this life, and then suddenly it felt like at that time I was just walking away and destroying it. And he said, oh, you know, when you watch kids on the beach building sandcastles, you know, they'll spend all day like creating this incredible sandcastle, and they might put a moat around it. And they had such a fun time. But then have you seen them so often jump all over it and destroy it? And he said, creation and the destruction are two words for the same thing. It's change. But we have different judgments. So those different words come with a different feeling. Destruction seems like a bad thing and creation we see as a good thing. But he said it's two words for the same thing. And again, it was like permission for me to stop trying to figure it all out and stop looking at the form and letting everything settle again. And I saw how innocently in life we create so much judgment. Like I had so much judgment about the idea I was going to leave a marriage. That was very, very hard for me. It was, you know, it was wrong. It made me a bad person. And then for someone else to be involved, it was, you know, and then suddenly it wasn't like he was giving me permission or saying it was great. He was just talking to me about creation and destruction being the same, two different words to describe change. And actually, without the judgment, it was just big change that happened in my life and in my ex-husband's life. And actually, amazingly, for a while, well, for a good few years, we kept a lovely friendship. And we did a beautiful series called Can Love Be Lost? And actually, what we spoke about in that time is actually the love was transformed into something different. It changed. So I would say that once it's seen, there's no one to see it. It's kind of like it's an impersonal, like it's a bit of a head. I was going to swear. Head. What do I say to it? Head flip. I try and say when
I couldn't think of another word.
I know there isn't really one for that. But I knew that it was pointing to something true, something that was true for everyone. And then the other one felt like again it was something true. It was applicable for everyone. It's like this idea of change and movement. But I love that it gave me permission to be a human being. Because I think I still was kind of on this kind of journey of trying to escape being a human, trying to understand enough that I became this blank canvas again. It's like, well, we are the blank canvas. And then with the power of thought we create.
The only thing that dies is the story. It's the only thing that dies. The only thing that dies really is the ego at the end of this human game, and the body. I know, loose. I was just looking at some pictures of Lucia. My God, I forgot I even had them. Spare me 1 second. Just gonna take a screenshot of that so I don't lose it because I just wanted to read this out. Come on.
You get it?
No, it didn't bloody work, but I know where it's at now. I was just looking at these pictures. And it was Lucia before. Here, she's shouting. It was Lucia before she started to create story. You go, she's in the bath. Get over it. Just get over it. Anybody who's got a problem. But look at that little face. That's what life looks like without it, without all the stories. It's just
You screenshot that from a video, didn't you?
yeah, like look, just such that's life without the stories. That's a human being before they've dreamt up the story of who they need to be. Oh, I've got this, or I've got that, or I did this, or I did that. That's what we look like underneath it all. That. So we can exist. We do exist without story. But I just wanted to read something. I think it's good time to put this in. And this is my sister. My sister Lise, she receives messages. At one point, she was receiving one every single day. She writes. She just gets a message. She pulls over. She writes it down, chucks it on the seat, carries on driving. Doesn't even look at half of them. But then occasionally she'll pick one up and go, "Oh, what's this? It's got my writing on it," and she'll read it. She doesn't remember writing them. I asked her to send me some, and she's got reams and books of them, hasn't she? She's just got them all over the house. Just these little messages that come through. Some of them are personal, and some of them are for everyone. So I'm encouraging her to put the for everyone ones in a book and just get it out there, because I think that they're really, really useful. But I love this one. This was on the 31st of October 2022. That Halloween.
Mm.
You don't need to fear anything in this life, beautiful soul. You, darling child, are made of the elements of the universe. We made you into a perfect creation. Your task is to realize you have life. You have the gift of materialization from a formless universe. You are the exact magic that you seek. You are the perfection of the flower you so graciously marvel. You are the fast-flowing river and the sun in the sky. You are the invisible into the visible. You are a dance, a play on an incredible stage. Darling child, be with your gift. Be with your creation. You are built for this life. Every rhythmic heartbeat, every single breath you breathe is a gift. You get to experience life. Breathe, see, listen. You never need fear this life because you are life itself. An incredible creation made from the material magic and majesty that makes all things. You are loved. I think that's just one of the most beautiful bits of writing. Your task is to realize you have life. You have life. You are alive. Wow. It didn't say in there, your task is to scrutinize the shit out of your realities. It was pointing us to before the experiences. We all know we have experiences. It's a given. We're up to date with that. We're fine with that. We've nailed that. We've fucking nailed that one. Your task is to realize you have life. You are the exact magic that you seek. You're it. We're all it. You were built for this life. Every rhythmic heartbeat, every single breath you breathe is a gift. What do you want to breathe your life into? Driving ourselves mad? Blaming everything else for why we feel like we feel? Blaming other people? It's up to us. It's entirely up to us. We can do whatever the hell we want. You never need fear this life because you are life itself. You are loved.
I love the other thing your sister says. I don't know if she came up with it or whether she quotes it, but that you can lead a man to wisdom, but you cannot make him think.
Yeah, I love that. She's the only person I've ever heard it from.
Yeah, I think it's, I always say it's Lisa, but I'm not sure. But it's so true. Can't, I don't know, I think in there's some people at different times in the principles that have either written something or created something, and one of those is Keith Blevins and his wife Valda. Just so insightfully, this diagram came to them, and they also had like for contrast, they called them implications, not applications, and they showed when you see and align with what's true, how life works, and they called that inside out. These are the implications in your life. When you are lost and in what they termed the outside in misunderstanding, this is what these are the implications in your life. And it was never like wrong and right, it was just this is what happens. And the simplicity of that sharing has been incredible because it's so black and white, and it's like the teaching is so narrow. And there are no exceptions. Something either works one way or not. And the fact that we have now got all of these incredible, simple books and diagrams, and you think, well, just email everyone all this information and then they can read it and then they'll realise and the world will change.
That's what Sid thought, wasn't it?
And you're like, but we have to insightfully see it. We have to realise and know it to be true. Otherwise it's just words and noise and black and white. So it's like people often say, you know, this is almost the hardest and the easiest job. Because you get to share from your heart and point people and guide people and see people wake up and like change their lives and do incredible things, move beyond trauma, move beyond things that have happened in their life that they've carried with them. But then also you can't make someone see something. You can lead a man to wisdom, but you cannot make them think.
For those who have ears to hear, let them hear.
And there has been times where I've spoken to someone or Dave's spoken to someone, and then you realise it's just going round on a loop. We said maybe we're not the best person for you to speak to. Like try someone else or go away and have some time. But it's like we seem to hear when we hear. And I've loved it kind of with community group because sometimes people have come a lot and then they drop off and then we have no idea like what's going on for them or where they've gotten. And they go off and just live for a bit and they might explore other teachings, read different books. And then they often drop back in and talk about like their exploration and what they've loved, and generally will say how much they love the simplicity of the principles. And they might go, oh wow, that session you did tonight was so amazing. Like the way that you said that. And you're thinking, wow, I've said that so many times, but they heard it in that moment. And I think we can't manufacture this. I like what you said earlier is, you know, some people call it prayer. You ask for guidance, you ask for help. You open your arms out and go, I don't know, this is beyond me. I need help here. And then you're open. But we can't make it happen. And if it was in a book or in a talk, then we could just send that book or that talk to everybody and we'd all wake up. And I think someone asked when the talk I did at Viva, like, well, why? I don't know why. I don't know why people wake up when they wake up. I don't know why people can hear the same message over and over again and seem to be deaf to it. And then suddenly something clicks for them. Or they're deaf to this conversation and they go off and they're minding their own business and something hits them like a ton of bricks. Or like our friend I was saying the other day, just had a random conversation with it was actually her child's therapist who talked about the ECG, you know, what happens when it flatlines. And our friend was like, well, you're dead. And she said, but that's like life's experiences. They're going to be ups and they're going to be downs, but the flat line is death. But we all seem to be looking for that flat line. And I think we'd spoken to her about things like that loads of times and she hadn't heard anything. And then suddenly the way that person said it to her in that moment, this huge shift has happened for her and she stopped grasping. So and we have to honour people's journey and honour that within people.
Just speaking to that point, one of my observations that I think is a hindrance to people hearing is quite often they come across people who've had an experience of the principles and they're waiting for that experience. And my mum came up with this. She had a shift walking the dog, and she was walking around the fell up behind our house. And she came back and she walked in the house and she was glowing and she was kind of bounced in and she just went, I've just had a realization. So what's that, Mum? And she went, I've been waiting to have the experience that you had, Dave. She said, but I can't have that. That was your experience. I can only have mine. Opened her up. One of the things that I feel is a real hindrance to people hearing is they think they already know. They think they already know. And it's in this thinking that we already know. It's like, what is this thinking we already know? Well, it's an image we've conjured up. It's an image of what it looks like that we've conjured up. Can you come and say hello, Luce? Come back to this, just one second. What you got around your neck?
It's a necklace.
It's a necklace, is it? You saying hello? Oh, your friends. Oh, your friends.
Who's this?
Oh, Claire's got one as well. Good.
What's her name? Valentina here.
Valentina?
Yes.
Valentina.
Valentina.
Have you had a nice day?
Valentina.
Have you had a nice day, Luce? Where did you go?
Wherever. What is her name?
Whose? Whose?
It's mine.
Granny Margaret's there.
Where?
There, you can't see her. She's in that box.
That good? Anything you'd like to say before we go in the other room?
I'm going to do something today. It's called Eloise Cafe.
Eloise Cafe.
Eloise Cafe.
What's her name? What is it called, Dad?
Don't know. I don't know where you've been. You've been to Lavenham, I think.
Oh, Perrywood you've been to.
Perrywoods, have you?
Been to Tiptree.
I've been to Perrywoods.
Nice.
I've been to Perrywoods, everyone.
And what happened there?
What did happen? What did happen?
I don't know.
What happened?
Oh, something there. This goes on for a while.
Yeah.
Come on then. I'm going to say bye to everyone.
Bye bye. Why are you doing that then?
Go on then.
See you later, Lucy Lou.
Yes, alligator. The white cocktail.
Little girl. I can still hear her gibbering on. One of the greatest stumbling blocks or blocks that we can find ourselves, bricks that we can find that prevents us from seeing this is an idea that we carry of what we think it looks like. Okay, so we'll judge our lives. When I say, I know, I'm going to keep listening because I'm going to have this experience I know what it looks like because I've heard them talk about it, heard Dave talk about it, I've heard Jenny talk about hers, I've heard them talk about theirs. Listen, Sid, I'm going to have this experience. And when I've had this experience, I know I'm where I need to be. And we judge our life, we're looking at our life going, oh, look, no, there must be something wrong with my life. I'm not there yet. I'm not whole. I'm not complete because my life doesn't look like this. Oh, my life doesn't look like that. Oh, year later, we're still going. We're still listening. Oh, this person's going to give it to me. And when they give it to me, it's going to look like this. Looking at our life thinking, it's all wrong. It's wrong. It's not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Because I know what it looks like. It looks like this. That right there, any idea what we think this is, what it's going to look like, what the experience is like, whatever image, whatever idea, whatever we've dreamt up, that right there is one of our greatest problems. Forget it. If you are listening, thinking you're going to have the same kind of experience as somebody else, you're not. You can't. It's impossible. It was their experience. You'll have your own, and it will be perfect for you. Don't confine it. Don't place limitations upon it. That is a limitation. That right there. Go beyond it. Go beyond anything you've heard. Go beyond me, go beyond Jen, go beyond Sid. Everybody's capable. We are infinite beings. There's no end to the depth and magnitude we can see into life. Don't limit yourself to us. Go beyond us. That's why to read this other one that I love, My Sister Again. This was 30th of the 12th, so nearly 2 months later, 2022. She says she's been given the name Sophia as somebody who she speaks to. Sophia means wisdom. You haven't weathered the storms, darling child. You've been thrashed by the rain and electrocuted by the lightning. All have shown you in the face of the things that you fear the most. No damage was done. You cannot know this life without the raging of the storms. Knowing you can withstand all weather without permanent discomfort is a gift in this life. The rain will thrash and the lightning will strike. You know how to embrace the storm. Life has taught you. Like the wind moves the clouds, so shall your weather settle and the sky become clear. As you rest in the ever-present warmth of the gentle sun, take a breath. As you get to notice, there's that word, the importance of the weather, and how what looks like a storm is the gateway to change and a driving force of life. You are made of the elements. Let's read this last one and then I think we'll break and we'll come back at 7:30, which is when we'll have Gordell speaking. Time is not running out, discontented soul, because it does not exist. It is as much an illusion as the dreams you have at night and the life you live in the day. Do not chase the illusion of time, because you will never get there, you see. You will never get to the imaginings of your mind, because you are living each and every one in this present moment. You are never behind, running out of time, or lost. You are living in the energy of the moment, bringing you your dream. As you dream, then there is nowhere else. Lean out. Feel their beautiful essence in the echo between the energy of your thoughts and the vessel that receives. You are magnificent. I love my sister's writings because they're speaking to everybody. They're not for a select few. They're speaking to everyone. Universal wisdom. And they're so true. Right. We're 10 minutes early, but let's call it an afternoon. And then we'll be back at 7:30 UK time. So that'll be an hour and 40 minutes roughly from now. 7:30 UK time. An hour and 40 minutes from now. And we'll have Gordell, who is just a treat. Look forward to seeing you then. Loads of love, everyone.